Welcome to week 10 of Power 5 Picks. I cannot believe we're this far into the season, but we are. And unfortunately for you guys, it's not the greatest of slates today. We got blessed the last couple weeks in college football, a lot of ranked matchups, a lot of big matchups. We do have a top 10 matchup, and that is a huge one. Biggest one of the day. That is number 4, Ohio State, at number 3, Penn State. We're going to save that one for last. We have 4 more games we want to cover first. Quick recap. We had 6 games special last week. We added the Michigan State. We both finished 3-3. This brings Ethan's record to 29-17-1 plus 10.3 units. Still very profitable there. And I got some bad news, guys. I have moved to 25-23, still positive on the record, but unfortunately, with that extra juice on the minus 110 plays, I'm down to minus 0.3 units. So unfortunately, we have a big fat loser, but that's expected from a guy that calls himself Worst Bets. Looking to bounce back this week. Ethan, welcome. How you feeling ahead of the Week 10 college football slate?
Yeah, well, if I was down 0.3 units on the season, actual bets, I would be praising God. If I was up 10.3 or whatever I am, I would do unthinkable things to get up 10 units. I am just in absolute piss. College football, pro football, NHL, NBA, you name it, it's been awful. That being said, I don't feel great about these picks. My confidence is honestly just gone on every single sport. So yeah, I mean, it's been a good year on the show. I feel like this is probably the best that I see it is when we record on Thursdays. Then I changed some opinions throughout the week, and it just hasn't been working out. So yeah, I should probably just bet what I give out here. But yeah, it's been a rough year.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Really up and down for me. Some really good days, some really, really bad days. So a little up and down for me. I do have one play that I absolutely love, and that is in that Ohio State Penn State. So make sure you do stick around to the end of the show. It's my
Same here.
play of the day, play of the week, play of the potential month in college football, and that is again in number 4 versus number 3. Ethan, like you said, has one in that game as well. But let's start it off with the fishiest line out there. I mean, come on, Vegas, what are we doing? This is a noon game, and again, I apologize. It's not the greatest slate. Me and Ethan do handpick a couple games we think are noteworthy to talk about. We are a little Big Ten biased, so this is a Big Ten game at noon between Minnesota traveling to number 24 Illinois. Unranked Minnesota is a 3-point favorite on the road. Over under sitting at 45.5. Just an absolute punch to the face here by Vegas putting out this stupid line, but I'm going to send it to you first to navigate whatever the hell this is.
Yeah, I mean the ugly line. We bet it every time. To my knowledge, it has not hit this year. In the games that we've mentioned or talked about, I mean, these are just getting blown out. But the second I flip off of it is the second they start hitting. So I'm obviously on Minnesota here. Don't love it. It's really just the line. Illinois is off that tough loss at Oregon where they got absolutely exposed, 38-9. Now have to travel all the way back home for the game against Minnesota. I think they could be in kind of a lose the same game twice scenario here. I think they really wanted to go out and make some noise against Oregon and just didn't. And Minnesota's been playing good ball lately. I mean, they beat USC, who was 11th at the time, which you and I both know USC is nowhere near a top 10 team. Beat UCLA on the road, beat Maryland. I mean, those aren't respectable wins, but against Maryland, they did win 48-23 last time out. But yeah, the ugly line, I can't take Illinois. That's just not in my makeup. So it's got to be Minnesota minus the 3 on the road. Obviously, public's going to love Illinois in this game on the bounce back. But yeah, give me Minnesota minus the 3.
Yeah, the ugly line has been struggling. Thankfully, Texas A&M did win last week on a somewhat similar line, not quite as bad as this, but a similar line. So finally, a not so pretty play hits. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm on Minnesota. It's got to be. Got to take that line when it's at that disgusting. I'm seeing 85% of the bets on DraftKings coming in on Illinois. Again, you see a ranked team against an unranked team at home is a 3-point dog. I mean, come on, what are we doing here, Vegas? So yeah, it's Minnesota. I'm not confident about that at all, but it's either me to not bet this game or I have to bet Minnesota. And knowing me, I'm going to be betting Minnesota on this game. Moving on to your Michigan State Spartans, you are hosting the number 13 red hot Indiana Hoosiers. The Hoosiers are points. Favored on the road, Michigan State. The over/under is sitting at 52 here. I'll take this one, unfortunately, first. Got smoked on Indiana this year. It's not even close. I was on Nebraska big against Indiana. Indiana won that game 56-7. It was on Washington big. Indiana won that game, I think, by 14-ish points. But I'm on Michigan State. I don't know. Michigan State, they battled with Michigan. I do think Michigan State has made or much needed improvements this year. They've gotten better, in my opinion, every single week. I'm also seeing 91% of bets coming in on Indiana on DraftKings, one of the most public bets out there. But it's been like this for multiple weeks for Indiana. Just seems like, Michigan State, after a loss to Michigan, I know it was at Michigan, and Michigan is nothing to be bragging about, but I just feel like Indiana should be a little bit more of a favorite here. They were at 7.5. They have moved up a little bit to 8. No idea what this line's going to move to come before kickoff on Saturday. But yeah, it's got to be the ugly play. I would lean MSU. I know a lot of people like the over too. I originally had that one written down. I think the under might be the play here. MSU's defense is actually pretty solid. As long as Childs can't throw or doesn't turn the ball over, I think this game will be relatively low scoring. So I'd lean the under, but yeah, I'm unfortunately going to fade Indiana once again, and it's not been working. But give me MSU +8.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Spartans +8. I also was on Washington last week. I didn't bet Nebraska, but definitely lean Nebraska the week before. But I do think this is just a good spot for Sparty, and kind of a bad spot for IU. So I'll start with the Spartan side. I mean, yeah, they are off the Michigan loss, which I think could be looked at as a negative. But I do think that game, even though it was only a 7-point victory for Michigan, I do think it was a little bit closer than what the final score shows. And I don't think a lot of people got to watch it because it was, to my knowledge, a Big Ten exclusive game. I think people are just going to look at the box score like, oh, yeah, Michigan State lost again to Michigan. Not really put too much thought into it. But like I've said a couple times on this show, I really think Michigan State's goal this year is just to get to a bowl game. I mean, they didn't come in thinking they were going to make the playoff or contend for a championship or contend for the Big Ten. I think they just want to get back to bowl eligibility. And they're kind of running out of time here at a 4-4 record. They do still have Purdue and Rutgers on their schedule. Two games that I think they should be able to have a good chance of winning, but they are the last 2 games of the year. They don't want to come down to that Rutgers game to make or break a bowl. So I think beating Indiana or Illinois is their better option here. Indiana is the home game. So I do think we'll see a big effort from Michigan State trying to get that elusive win. And then on the flip side, Indiana, I think they can finally start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel of, oh, we might actually be able to take this thing undefeated, at least up until Ohio State. Or at least go 11-1. And I think there could be a touch of a look ahead because after Michigan State, it is Michigan at Indiana. Again, reigning national champion. It's just obviously, more than anybody, not the same Michigan team, but it's still the reigning national champion. So I think Indiana's going to want that win. Then they have Ohio State after that. So, I think they could potentially overlook Michigan State. I think they can just travel the short distance to East Lansing, get out with a win, and move on to Michigan and Ohio State. 8 points. Just think it's too many for the Spartans at home. I'll gladly take Michigan State plus the points. Would not surprise me if they hand Indiana their first loss of the year.
God, I'd absolutely love it. I can't stand these Hoosiers anymore. Again, good for them, but yeah, God, they're pissing me off. Moving on to the night slate, we have a 7:30 p.m. start. Number 10, Texas A&M traveling to South Carolina. South Carolina is a 3-point home dog. Over under is 44.5. Who do you got in this SEC matchup?
Yeah, I'm taking South Carolina again, kind of on the ugly line. Not a game that I love. Texas A&M has New Mexico State on deck, so it's absolutely no look ahead, and there's a bye in between. But they are off the win against LSU, so I do think they could come in feeling pretty good about themselves. They have not lost since week 1 against Notre Dame. Had some big wins in there, beating Missouri, Florida, Arkansas, who they're not great, but the big wins against Missouri and LSU, 2 top 10. So, yeah, I think the line is fishy here. Think A&M's feeling pretty confident, pretty good about themselves. And I think South Carolina's defense is going to cause issues for A&M and keep this game close. So yeah, I'm going to take the points with South Carolina at home. They only allowed 9 points to Oklahoma, which you and I have both talked about. Oklahoma has struggled this year. They're all banged up. Only allowed 27 to Alabama, 27 to Ole Miss. So this defense is playing pretty well. Don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. Wouldn't talk anyone off taking the under in this one. But I think there's going to be enough defense for South Carolina to keep it close, if not win outright. So I'll take the points.
3 games in, three same sides. I'm on South Carolina as well. South Carolina's not bad, and I think they're getting a little disrespected. Texas A&M, like you just mentioned, everything you said is true. Big win off LSU. They do have New Mexico State, but there's a bye in there, so they really can give this game all their focus. So it's not a true like what I usually like playing on in the hangover loss, or sorry, hangover emotional game that they had against LSU. But they have nothing ahead of them. So I'm a little worried about that. But South Carolina, they spanked Kentucky. They lost to LSU by 3 at home. They lost to Alabama at 2 at Alabama. They just murdered Oklahoma. They have a decently bad loss to Ole Miss, but they kept Ole Miss with 27 points. Unfortunately, they could only put up 3. But yeah, I think you're right. Their defense is going to keep them in this game. I think they can cover. I think they could potentially win this as well. So I'll take South Carolina right there with you. On the spread at the +3. This brings us to our 8 p.m. game, our second ranked matchup. This is number 18 Pittsburgh at number 20 SMU. We haven't talked about the ACC much, probably because they're ass, but we do have 2 ranked teams here. SMU is a 7-point favorite at home. Over under sitting at 58. Pittsburgh's off a big win against Syracuse last weekend, where they had 3 pick sixes and got 5 turnovers against McCord from in Syracuse. And SMU had an overtime win against Duke where they fumbled 6 times, lost 3 of them, and had 3 interceptions. So they still got the win, but I think people are going to look at a 7-point spread against a team that went to overtime with Duke, and then look at Pittsburgh, who just destroyed Syracuse, and happily take Pittsburgh on the +7. Also, both these teams aren't really talked about at all. Like I said, ACC is kind of going under the radar. So I don't think the public really knows what's going on here. But they love Pitt, and I'm going to take a shot on SMU to cover here. I'm not super sold on Pitt. And again, 3 pick sixes and 5 picks in general in a game. Really inflate the score and the box score there. And then again, SMU with 6 turnovers last week. That's obviously is an issue, but they still won the game with 6 turnovers. So that easily could have been a spanking if SMU took care of the ball. So I think SMU is going to get it done. I'll take them very ugly on the -7. Probably my least confident play out there, just because I don't know really anything about either of these teams.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go 5 for 5 today. I am on SMU, and I said I have no confidence. I have all the confidence in the world in this SMU play. I actually might like it more than our next game. Pretty equal, but you mentioned just a lot of it. I mean, I don't expect Pittsburgh to keep being this good. They don't have any win really on their schedule that impresses me other than Syracuse. But like you said, I mean, I think they won the turnover battle by 4 or 5. I don't know if they gave one back, but yeah, 3 pick sixes. I mean, you're not going to win football games or really compete in football games when you're turning the ball over like that. And then you mentioned it on the SMU side. It's the complete flip. Almost gave the game away to Duke because of all the turnovers, but ended up winning it. Your casual fans just going to look at the box score. They're going to see SMU has a loss, Pitt undefeated. SMU just squeaked by Duke. Pitt blew out Syracuse. Pitt has extra time to prepare. I mean, public's going to absolutely feast on Pitt. And then there's also 7.5s out there, which is just, again, just asking the public, come in, take the 7.5 on the undefeated Pitt. No chance. SMU in a blowout in this game. I think Pittsburgh finally gets exposed by their first really good team that they're going to face. And yeah, if the turnovers come back to near, equilibrium, or we expect Pitt to not win the turnover battle by as many as they did, and SMU to lose it by as many as they did. Give me SMU in a complete runaway.
Wow. Confidence. I love it. Definitely makes
Okay.
me feel a little better, because that was the one I honestly had the most trouble with deciding. So that does make me feel better. That brings us to the game of the day. I haven't even looked, but this is College Game Day, right? It's got to be. It's the only
Yeah.
good game on here. We're traveling to Happy Valley. Number three, Penn State is hosting number four, Ohio State. Ohio State is a 3.5 point favorite. Over under is 45.5. This is always a battle every single year. Penn State is notorious, at least recently, with not being able to win the big game. Same thing with Ohio State, but usually the opponent's name is Michigan. Ohio State has spanked around Penn State recently, and like I said, Penn State really struggles against these top 10 teams. I'll send it to you. Again, I do have my play of the day, play of maybe the month is on this game, but I'll send it to you. And I think we're gonna go 5 for 5.
Yeah, just one last thing I did want to say on SMU. They also do have a bye on deck next week, so put all their effort into Pitt here. But I am going to play Ohio State minus the points in this game, and I think this one's not even close either. Um, I mean, yeah, Penn State's played well, but they're not a top three. They're not a top five. They're probably not a top 10. They might not even be a top 20 team in the country. I mean, who have they beat outside of maybe Illinois? But they beat them 21-7. I mean, we just saw what Oregon did to Illinois, and I'm not even fully sold that Oregon's the number one, number two, number three team in the country. So yeah, I'm not impressed with Penn State. Like you said, they've struggled against these top teams. I think it's a huge disadvantage that yes, they do get this game at home, but it's a noon game. They don't get the hype, the whiteout, the night atmosphere here. So I think that plays into Ohio State's favor. I think Ohio State's way better. They've already lost a game to Oregon, so they're going to be playing with extra effort to not lose this one. On the road, -3. I mean, against an undefeated team, your public's going to take Penn State all day here. Ohio State just struggled against Nebraska as well, so I think people are saying, "Oh, they lost to Oregon, almost lost to Nebraska. Like this team's overrated." I think they're just looking ahead to Penn State here. Thought they could just squeak by Nebraska. Um, this is really kind of it for Ohio State on the schedule. They do still have to play IU. Um, Time will tell how IU is where they're ranked by the time they end up playing them. And then Michigan is obviously a huge game, but they should be able to win that one. So yeah, I think it's when they lost to Oregon, Oregon was number 3 in the country. They get a shot to redeem themselves against another number 3, a team they're familiar with. Give me Ohio State. Again, I kind of think it's a blowout here.
Well, we're not on the same. We're not on the
Ooh,
same. My game of the week, potentially game of the month, is unfortunately on the opposite side. I'm finally going to be on Penn State.
ooh,
I think Penn State wins it outright, to be honest with you. Uh, yeah, I mean, Penn State, not great, to be honest. Overtime win against USC. Haven't really, 27-11 win against UCLA. Like you said, beat Illinois 21-7, beat Bowling Green by 7 here. Uh, they, I don't know. I'm not super sold on them, but I think last week is kind of the determining factor. Both teams were in look ahead spots because they obviously have this game. And Ohio State was at home against Nebraska, which I think is a inferior team to Wisconsin, who Penn State played. Ohio State came back and scored a go-ahead touchdown to win that game with about a minute 40 left to beat Nebraska at home 21-7. Ohio State also started extremely slow against Marshall, extremely slow against Michigan State, extremely slow against Iowa. Yes, they pulled away in all 3 of those games, but even at half, these were shaky games for Ohio State -35 or whatever their spreads were in those games. Then we have Penn State here, who again was in a very similar look ahead spot, probably even a scarier look ahead spot because they had to go to Camp Randall, which is Wisconsin, at night, play Wisconsin team that was feeling pretty good about themselves, and they ended up winning that game by 15 points. I don't know. And, people are already talking about Penn State, like I said, just can't win the big game. I think Penn State has obviously the home field advantage. I think they're better coached. I'm not sold on Ohio State at all this year. I don't think Will Howard's very good. Their wide receivers are amazing. Let's be honest. Their running backs are pretty damn good. But I think Penn State's going to squeeze this one out. I will happily take them to +3.5 with the hook here. I hate kind of how obvious that is, but yeah, I love Penn State. I think they finally win this game outright. Yeah, Ryan Day potentially on the hot seat if he does lose that game. So I love Penn State. I'm probably going to get involved, spread and money line. Just have a really, really good gut feeling here, and that's what we're going to rock with. But Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't on the same side for the entire slip. That might be a good thing, though. We're guaranteed a winner in that Ohio State Penn State game. But good luck, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you do like, subscribe, share over here on YouTube. This is where we post most of our content here. We do have an NBA show out now called Dropping Dimes. We have an NHL show out now called 5 Minute Wager. We still have our NFL show, and we still have our MMA UFC show, and we will be adding college basketball, pretty soon here. But Ethan, do you have anything to add before we wrap up on week 10 of Power 5 picks?
Yeah, you definitely took my confidence away on Ohio State, so that might save me a loser. But I do love SMU still. But yeah, guys, check out our other shows if you like to bet our other sports. Great time of year to be a sports fan and a sports bettor. But yeah, we'll look to keep rolling here in week 10 of college football. Yeah, hopefully you guys all have a nice, profitable weekend.
Yeah, good luck, guys. Again, if you do want all of our official picks, follow us on Twitter at eBainbridge and at Worst Bets, eBainbridge26, and at Worst Bets. We post all our official plays over there, but just probably take our picks on the show. But we appreciate you guys. We will see you this weekend potentially for some lives. Happy Halloween, and we will see you next time. See you guys.
You better start listening to the Better in Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? To Better in Green, eh? Listen in and cash out. That's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover all spots from the bottom to the top, eh? Shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome, welcome to our podcast, Better in Green.